This is the form that you can download off the Logan Labs website, and this is what gets sent in with the soil sample. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I promised y'all that I would share the results from the soil test. So this is the one from Logan Labs, and I am comparing this year's sample with the one from 2016. So the pH has moved, it's still in the neutral range, but it's moved a little bit more acidic because it's 7.1, whereas it was a 7.4 in 2016. I'm happy to say that the calcium and magnesium and potassium levels are all closer to the desired range. I was really having a deficit of potassium in 2016, and that's really improved because it's not lacking much now, and I believe that's why the potatoes did better. And the overages are much closer in where they needed to be as well. So my concern remains on the aluminium or aluminum, depending on how you pronounce it. It went up 74 parts per million to 611, and in 2016, you can see it was 537 parts per million. I know that the more acidic soil would allow more of the aluminium to be showing up in the test. Here in this part of the yard, I was pondering putting in blueberries, and that part of the yard is very acidic, which is fine. Blueberries like an acidic soil, but it quite startled me when I saw the content of the aluminum in the soil test in 2016. And because of that, I was researching adding silicon to the garden. So I did last year add silicon to the garden, and it's showing up in the test. I have more research to do on that before I can determine if more of that is actually what's needed, or I just needed, to add a little bit more lime and bring the soil into a slightly sweeter state and potentially lock up more of the aluminium and free up some of the other minerals. So I'm going to show you now the results from the state lab, which is not quite as detailed as this. Hopefully y'all are seeing this. These are the results from the North Carolina State Lab, and the only recommendation they made is adding nitrogen, right over here, 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet. I will do that in the spring using either blood meal or fish emulsion along with the compost tea and worm compost teas that I brew. They show the pH at 7.2. Logan Labs showed it at 7.1, so that's pretty similar. And then those are the other, they don't show aluminium on this report. I'm still quite concerned about where is that coming from. One idea I have is that it's the spraying that they do in the skies to the cloud seeding, because it does contain aluminum. One very important and interesting piece of information that I want to share with you, it comes from this book by Steve Solomon. I'm not sure I ever, I'm sure I read this at one point and was aware, and then it just went out of my awareness. He's talking about patterns, soils containing potassium. Too much potassium causes the plants to produce more carbohydrate and less protein. So the fact that my garden in 2016 actually had a huge deficit of potassium, although the potatoes didn't do as well, that turned out to be a beneficial thing as far as protein content for the food. So I am not adding any additional potassium to the garden. So far, I've added some alfalfa and some seaweed. Now, seaweed does contain potassium in it, but it also contains a lot of other minerals. I am going to add more of the glacial rock dust. I talk about that in the very first video that I filmed way back. So you can go back and watch that if you're curious. The very interesting thing that Steve says here, this is just interesting to me. He says, perhaps the sorry state of our industrial food supply results from the accidental coming together of many unintended consequences. But I think it's highly possible our industrial food system is intended to produce a population that is lacking energy, a low-grade, sick, most of the time, increasingly stupefied and controllable, and dependent on medicine and doctoring, like feedlot cattle. Based on all the things that are going on in the world right now, I have to agree with Steve Solomon. So get this book if you're interested. That's my soil test report. I will be out in the garden filming pretty soon because it's almost time for me to be planting garlic. Thanks for joining me here. Keep researching, y'all. This is super, super important, what's going on right now. All right, see you in the next video.